Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Stephanie Cox. House Republicans are planning to sue Attorney General Merrick Garland and the Department of Justice over the audio tapes of the special counsel's interview with President Biden. The Supreme Court allows the government to continue collaborating with social media companies to monitor unwanted posts. Arlene Richards has the details. A home swept away by devastating floodwaters. Residents in the Midwest continue to face the effects of torrential rains and a scorching heat wave. Representative Lauren Boebert has secured a nomination in her new district, and pro-Israel George Latimer defeats Congressman Jamal Bowman in a New York Democratic primary. More updates from yesterday's House primaries. Millions are persecuted across the globe for their beliefs. Secretary of State Antony Blinken releases this year's annual Human Rights Report. We'll bring you the details. From mowing lawns at 12 to running a $1 million business at 23, discover how a determined teen turned his small lawn care gig into a landscaping empire. Today in Washington, House Republicans are planning to sue Attorney General Merrick Garland and the Justice Department. They want the DOJ to hand over audio recordings of special counsel Robert Hur's interview with President Biden. Lawmakers already have transcripts of the interview, but Republicans say listening to it could help them understand more about the president's memory. House Speaker Mike Johnson says they're doing everything they can to get the tapes.
The Judiciary Committee, and I guess this is breaking news, maybe you know, we are going to file suit next week against the Department of Justice to enforce that subpoena. We'll go to district court here in D.C., which is the appropriate venue, and we will fight vigorously to get it. And we're going to be as aggressive as we can and use every tool in our arsenal to make sure that it happens, because we have an obligation on the Constitution to do it.
The special counsel decided not to charge Biden over his handling of classified documents. He said Biden came across as, quote, a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory, based on this interview. AG Garland previously declined the House GOP investigators' request when they subpoenaed him for the audio tapes. He cited the president's executive privilege. So the lawmakers held him in contempt earlier this month. But the DOJ declined to prosecute the case. In a separate move, Florida House Republican Anna Paulina Luna is planning to force a vote on an inherent contempt resolution against the AG. The congressional procedure hasn't been used in 100 years. It would direct the Sergeant at Arms to detain Garland for a trial by the House itself. And the Illinois man charged with shooting up an Independence Day parade in Chicago suburb 2 years ago backed out of a plea deal today. According to published reports, 23-year-old Robert Cremo was expected to plead guilty to 7 counts of murder and 48 counts of aggravated battery. But during the hearing, he didn't respond when asked if he agreed with the guilty plea. After discussing the matter with his counsel, he answered no to whether he accepted the terms of the agreement. He's accused of opening fire on spectators and participants from the roof of a building during a 4th of July parade in the Chicago suburb of Highland Park in 2022. He had pleaded not guilty to 21 counts of first-degree murder, 48 counts of attempted murder, and 48 counts of aggravated battery. He faces a sentence of life without parole, plus 30 years for each count of aggravated battery. The trial is set for February 2025. And a house swept away by raging waters. Residents in the Midwest continue to face the effects of torrential rains and a scorching heat wave. NTD's Fiona G has more.
Shocking footage shows the moment a house topples into the flood-swollen Blue Earth River below.
Oh my.
Days of severe thunderstorms caused the Blue Earth River in Minnesota to swell dramatically and push against the Rapidan Dam. Officials became aware of accumulating debris at the dam on Sunday. The dam's west abutment failed Monday, sending part of the river around the dam and eroding the bank where the home sat. The Barnes family, who has owned the home for over half a century, had evacuated the house before the collapse. The Rapidan Dam is built on sandstone bedrock, which can continue to erode with severe weather. The National Inventory of Dams classifies the dam as being in poor condition and says it poses a significant hazard potential. Tornado warnings, flash flooding, and large hail persist across the Midwest. At least 2 have died from flood-related incidents in Iowa and South Dakota. Both states recorded record-high river levels. Some regions have been hit with a month's worth of rain in only 48 hours. Some communities have issued evacuation orders, while others are still without power. Fiona G., NTD News.
Next, the Supreme Court has unblocked the Biden administration from communicating with social media platforms. The decision undercuts 2 Republican-led states that argued their First Amendment rights were violated when the federal government collaborated with platforms to remove unwanted content. Our legal correspondent, Arlene Richards, has the details.
In a 6-3 decision on Wednesday, the Supreme Court preserved the federal government's ability to communicate with social media platforms, which means the government can continue to encourage platforms to take steps to block what they believe to be misinformation. Justice Amy Coney Barrett, writing the opinion for the court, said the plaintiffs, 2 Republican-led states and 5 individuals, didn't prove they had standing to seek an injunction against the government. She said they didn't prove they had any direct injury based on the government's involvement in advising platforms on what content to regulate, saying the plaintiffs should have sued the platforms themselves. Barrett wrote, "Here, the plaintiffs' theories of standing depend on the platform's actions, yet the plaintiffs do not seek to enjoin the platforms from restricting any posts or accounts." She also said the plaintiffs had not shown that they would face immediate significant harm due to the government's actions. Justice Samuel Alito, joined by Justices Clarence Thomas and Neil Gorsuch, wrote in a dissenting opinion that this is one of the most important free speech cases to reach this court in years. He said under the First Amendment, government officials may not coerce private entities to suppress speech. And that is what happened in this case, he wrote. The case is now pushed back to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals for further proceedings based on the majority decision. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
And now on to the latest primary results. Pro-Israel George Latimer has defeated Congressman Jamal Bowman in New York's congressional primary. And Lauren Boebert wins in Colorado as Jeff Hurd claims the nomination in her old district.
Democratic voters in New York's 16th district chose to oust progressive Congressman Jamal Bowman as Israel's war in Gaza continues to divide the party. His opponent, former state legislator George Latimer, entered the contest with the support of Jewish leaders and the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, or AIPAC. AIPAC spent over $14 million in ads for Latimer's campaign. This makes it the most expensive House race ever, according to Ad Impact. In a speech after his projected victory, Latimer called for unity in the Democratic Party.
We unify with each other because every one of us has some skill and ability that the other one of us does not have.
Bowman, who is seeking a 3rd term, has criticized Israel for its actions in Gaza and drawn considerable flack for it. On Tuesday night, he conceded defeat and thanked his supporters.
I really appreciate you all being here. Thank you for all your love and support.
He reiterated his commitment to the pro-Palestine movement. In Colorado, Congresswoman Lauren Boebert is projected to win the 4th District Republican primary. She switched from the 3rd to the 4th District to run for Ken Buck's open seat after he resigned in March. Boebert faced off against 5 Republicans, but held the top spot in fundraising and the endorsement of former President Trump. Her move from Colorado's 3rd to 4th District means she will avoid facing off against Democrat Adam Frisch again. In 2022, she edged Frisch out in one of the most hotly contested races that year. In Boebert's former district, Jeff Hurd is projected to finish safely ahead of former state representative Ron Hanks. Hanks found support from Democrats who saw him as a weaker candidate as they attempt to flip the 3rd district in November. Also in Colorado, Jeff Crank is projected to win the 5th District Republican primary. The latest count shows him handedly beating Trump-endorsed Dave Williams, who serves as a state GOP chair. Colorado's 5th District is solidly red. This means there's a good chance Crank will be elected in November. Another Trump-backed candidate is projected to lose in South Carolina. Mark Burns is set to lose a one-on-one runoff in South Carolina's 3rd District. His rival, Sherry Biggs, is now on track to face Democrat Byron Best. The district is conservative, giving her the advantage.
And President Biden has won a surprising endorsement, former Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger. Kinzinger, a military pilot, is the highest profile Republican official formally backing Biden. Biden shared the endorsement video on social media and said he was grateful for the support. The former Illinois congressman's announcement comes one day before the presidential debate. And if you want to watch the first presidential debate tomorrow, here on NTD, Steve Lance and Tiffany Meyer will be presenting an exciting and well-rounded analysis. Watch the first half of our coverage on The Nation Decides tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. And stay tuned for the live CNN presidential debate on CNN or simulcast on NTD News at 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll jump back on with the second half of our show right after the debate at 11 p.m. Don't miss it. Next, killed for their beliefs. It's a problem happening in several countries across the globe. Today, the State Department released its annual International Religious Freedom Report. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley joins us from the State Department. Jack, what are some of the highlights from this year's report?
Good afternoon, Steph. Well, this report highlights about 200 countries across the globe and the religious freedom that's in those countries. Secretary of State Antony Blinken earlier today gave remarks announcing this report in front of a group of persecuted individuals from around the globe. One of those individuals was a Falun Gong practitioner from China. Falun Gong is a spiritual practice based on truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance, and it's heavily persecuted in China. This individual, who was highlighted during the press conference, along with many others, faced firsthand the persecution underneath the Chinese regime, and her husband is still in prison today. Take a look.
This repression follows decades of persecution of religious communities, from Tibetan Buddhists to Christians to Falun Gong practitioners. This year marks the 25th anniversary of the Chinese Communist Party's crackdown on Falun Gong practitioners. Joining us today is Hua Sheng, a courageous leader who has served several prison sentences, at times enduring torture for her beliefs, and who eagerly seeks to be reunited with her husband, who is still imprisoned in China. We even see the PRC attempt to reach across its borders to target individuals and silence critics, such as the reports of Chinese authorities engaging in transnational repression against predominantly Muslim Uyghurs, Tibetans, Falun Gong, and many more.
Now, as we can see, her husband is still held in prison because he does that spiritual practice, Falun Dafa. And not to pick on the Chinese Communist Party, but they are a perfect example of what it looks like to infringe upon religious freedom. The clergy there for other religions like Christianity and Buddhism, to name a few, they have to actually pledge allegiance to the CCP, the Chinese regime, and to socialism as well. Otherwise, they face arrest. Transnational repression is also taking place. The CCP will send operatives to spy and even harass individuals who are persecuted in China. They are harassed here, even in the U.S. There's a Pew Research study that was just cited by Secretary of State Antony Blinken during that press conference, where he said that the Pew Research study said that religious freedom is now at the worst time it's ever been since they began tracking back in 2001. This comprehensive report will be used to influence policy decisions going forward and can be used for Congress as well as lawyers and other institutions like that. Steph, back to you.
For sure. All right. Thank you so much, Jack. And next, Arizona. This week, Border Patrol agents are warning migrants of deadly situations near the U.S.-Mexico border. Agents say people can die making the trek to the U.S. due to extreme temperatures and rough terrain.
The loss of life is not worth making this trek because all of these smuggling organizations are lying to the migrants who are crossing, because to them, they're just a commodity. They're just trying to make money off and extort these people, and so they're not telling them the dangers that they are going to be facing once they cross the border.
The agent suggests that the reality migrants encounter on the journey is often very different from what they expect. He added that Border Patrol wants to bring the message out so that people don't lose their lives trying to come to the U.S. The agent also said that Border Patrol is trying to prevent illegal crossings altogether. But if people do cross and are in trouble, agents still are prepared to help them, he said. Now in Florida, more than 100 illegal immigrants from Haiti arrived this morning by boat. Key West police said 118 migrants, including women and children, were on a 40-foot sailboat that ran aground off the beach. They were reportedly at sea for about 7 days. No fatalities or major injuries were reported, but emergency responders did treat some migrants for dehydration. The migrants have been bused to Marathon, Florida, to be processed by U.S. Border Patrol. And when we come back, French President Emmanuel Macron telling voters France may head into a civil war if the Nationalist Party wins the upcoming election. More on his message and how the opposition party's responding. In Denmark, farmers are being hit with a carbon tax on dairy cows. We'll tell you how much they have to pay. And a 12-year-old girl with a dream and a lawnmower builds a $1 million company. Stay tuned with NTD's Daniel Monahan, who brings us this remarkable journey after the break.
The big night's almost here. The current and former presidents debate to win your vote again. Watch the CNN presidential debate on CNN or simulcast here on NTD News. And catch our pre- and post-debate coverage on The Nation Decides 2024. First presidential debate with Steve Lance and Tiffany Meyer. Live tomorrow, 8:30 p.m. Eastern on NTD News.
One in 5 children worldwide are faced with the reality of living without food. No family dinners, no special treats, not enough energy to play. All around the world, hunger is affecting children's physical and mental health. Toddlers are suffering from acute malnutrition, which stunts their growth. Kids are forced to drop out of school so they can help support their families. Conflict, inflation, and climate have ignited the worst famine in our lifetime. And we are fed up. Fed up that hunger devours dreams. Fed up that hunger destroys joy. Fed up with the fact that hunger eats childhood. Help us feed the futures of children all over the world by visiting getfedupnow.org. For as little as $10 a month, you can join Save the Children as we support children and families in desperate need of our help. Now is the time to get fed up and give back. When you join the cause, your $10 monthly donation can help communities in need of life-saving treatments and nutrients, prevent children from dropping out of school, support our work with communities and governments to help children go from short-term surviving to long-term thriving. And now, thanks to special government grants, every dollar you give can multiply up to 10 times the impact. That means more food, water, medicine, and help for kids around the world. You'll also receive a free tote bag to share your support for children in need. Having your childhood eaten away by hunger is unimaginable. Get fed up. Call us now or visit getfedupnow.org.
When I drink it, the first thing was I feel the warmth in my tummy. It's kind of like gently radiating out, a kind of a very comforting warmth. And it was really good, actually. I felt much better. I did feel, actually, the effect. And I find that it is actually better when I take it regularly.
It's actually steamed and dried 9 times. And so it's really, the essence is really extracted.
Then the second time, I tried it really like on an empty stomach and just 2 teaspoons of it, and over a few times. And wow, that was a big difference, because suddenly I could feel, wow, I was very good energized. I didn't have to eat. I could work outside in the garden for a couple of hours, and I still felt very well. And I was impressed by that. So I think it's a good product.
A few days before the parliament election in France, polls show that the opposition party, the National Party, is likely to win. French President Emmanuel Macron says that such a scenario poses the risk of a civil war. NTD's international correspondent David Vivas has the response from the National Rally spokesperson.
In a letter published on Sunday in France's media outlets, Macron addressed the French people who will vote this weekend for a new parliament. He notably said that the way the country is governed must change. He also warned that France could face a civil war if the Nationalist Party or the left-wing party wins the election. According to him, the national rally led by Marine Le Pen and the new left-wing coalition, quote, reduce people to their religion or their origin and therefore push people towards civil war. National Rally spokesperson Julien Audoul says Macron's words are fear-mongering.
These are totally outrageous remarks by the president, who is trying to frighten people into believing that because the French would decide to delude an absolute majority of the national rally, there would be disturbances to the order of the republic and violence. Really? All this is obviously false. Democracy must be respected. The vote of the French people must be respected.
Audoul says it's not the first time the president has used such words.
In the 7 years that they have unfortunately been running our country, we have suffered chaos, violence, insurrections and riots that were unprecedented last year. It is true that Emmanuel Macron said in 2017 that it would be him or chaos. It was him for 7 years, mostly him and chaos. We will be the return of peace, harmony and security everywhere and for everyone.
While Macron did not specify how a civil war would unfold, there are signs of strong polarization in the country. Several members of the left-wing coalition have called for protests in the aftermath of the election, in the case that the Nationalist Party wins. Some national unions, which are supposed to be neutral, have shown support for the left-wing coalition. They include the Journalists' Union and the Court Judges' Union. The Education Union said they wouldn't obey any minister if he or she comes from the National Rally. Audoul says he thinks the transition to a right-wing government would be smooth, though.
Dissenting voices are in the minority. They are the last bullets in a barking system that is losing its way.
The French will vote in the first round of parliament elections on Sunday. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
New home sales are on the decline, and the world's first carbon tax is being imposed on dairy farmers in Europe. Here's NTD's Don Ma with today's Business Matters.
All right, thank you very much, Steph. Sales of newly built homes declined last month as mortgage rates remain high. The federal government reports new home sales fell 11.3% in May from a month before to a less than expected 619,000 homes. So this is the steepest monthly decline since September 2022 and marks the lowest level since November. Meanwhile, mortgage rates soared to the highest level of the year in early May and have since trended down. And borrowing costs are expected to ease this year, but not by very much. New home sales, by the way, make up only about 10% of the market. Meanwhile, we're also seeing the world's first carbon tax on livestock, and it's going to cost farmers $100 per cow. Now, dairy farmers in Denmark face having to pay an annual tax per cow for the emissions they generate. And the country's coalition government agreed this week to introduce the world's first carbon emissions tax on agriculture. It's going to mean that new levies on livestock starting in 2030. Now, Denmark is a major dairy and pork exporter. The move comes just months after farmers held protests across Europe, blocking roads with tractors and pelting the European Parliament with eggs over a long list of complaints, including gripes about environmental regulation and excessive red tape. All right, that's all from me today, Steph. Back to you.
All right, lastly, in a quiet Pennsylvania suburb, a determined 12-year-old set out to build a lawn mowing business from scratch, never losing hope when the start was slow. His persistence is paying off, though, from humble beginnings into a $1 million enterprise. NTD's Daniel Monahan speaks with Chase Gallagher of CMG Landscaping about his journey.
At 12, Chase Gallagher was doing chores for pocket money, but wanted more. Too young for official work, he decided to mow lawns, learning to make flyers on YouTube, and landing his first job for $35.
I've always been a hustler, always wanting more, and I just kept going. Next year, when I was 13, my brother was older, and he finally got his license, and my parents bought him a little Ford Escape, so I paid to put a hitch on the back of his SUV. I had a mower already, my dad's mower, and I was like, I want to take this to the next level. And we have 4 big developments around me.
Mom helped out, staying late at work to print out thousands of flyers.
And then that winter, I passed out over 5,000 flyers to like the surrounding neighborhoods. And that's when we went to like 13, 14 weekly lawn mowing clients. I traded the old mower in. I bought a little zero turn. And that's when like the business really started taking off when I was 13.
His business became his passion. Soon he was clearing $20,000 a year. His mom let him do high school online, and he was free to do work and do estimates anytime he wanted. It took him courage at 17 to finally stand up and say he wasn't going to college. His mom wasn't thrilled because she put in a lot of work helping him get into Penn State. But Gallagher was firm in his decision.
Like all over the world. I remember like my vision back then was to have like branches in Italy, Canada, Mexico, like all sorts of, you know what I mean? So I don't even know where it came from, but I just had goals, and so I just worked towards them.
At 18, realizing the potential of project-based landscaping, he sold his lawnmowers, rebranded to CMG Landscaping, and shifted his business model. Today, he owns several properties, employs 9 workers, and his company made over $1 million in revenue last year, placing him among the top 1% of income earners at 23 years old.
The past 2 years, I've been investing in real estate. So I bought a 32-acre plot of land, and that's where I store a lot of my equipment. I have other tenants on there. So a lot of times what I'll do is position my team in our slow months to work on my real estate portfolio. I'll flip a house or 2 over winter, keep them as rental properties. So that's kind of like a side business.
Gallagher also runs CMG University, a coaching program helping lawn care operators transition into landscaping companies. He shares some wisdom for aspiring entrepreneurs.
Learn a skill, whatever. If you're a plumber, HVAC, landscaper, whatever you are, be the best person at that service. And focus, this might be too high level, but focus on client experience. That means answering emails fast, calling people back, giving direct responses, all these things. It's like, be the best plumber you can be to start, charge a premium because you are the best, and then as you build a team, focus on client experience.
Beyond business, Gallagher is passionate about finding a cure for C3G, a rare kidney disease he was diagnosed with in 2nd grade. After undergoing a kidney transplant at 20, he now raises awareness for the serious illness. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Thank you for watching NTD Newsroom. I'm Stephanie Cox. See you tomorrow.